Right now, 38 trillion microorganisms are living and breathing inside your gut. But here is the fact that makes that number even more extraordinary. Just one day, a single Saturday or Sunday of fasting, can completely transform that ecosystem. Beneficial bacteria explode in number while harmful bacteria begin to starve. Today, we are going to unpack the science behind exactly why this happens. Your gut is far more than a digestive organ. Modern medicine increasingly refers to it as the second brain. And for good reason. Roughly 100 million neurons line your gastrointestinal tract, a number comparable to the entire spinal cord. Between 90 and 95% of your body's serotonin, the neurotransmitter most associated with mood and happiness, is produced right there in your intestines. Approximately 70% of all immune cells in your body are concentrated in gut-associated lymphoid tissue, the short-chain fatty acids your gut bacteria manufacture cross the blood-brain barrier and directly regulate cognition, emotional control, and neuroinflammation. Put simply, when your gut ecosystem collapses, your immunity collapses with it. And so does your brain. In a healthy gut, beneficial bacteria account for roughly 25% of the total microbial community. Neutral species make up about 65%, and harmful bacteria are held at around 10%. The problem is that for many modern adults, pathogenic and inflammatory species have already crept above 20 to 30% of total microbiome composition. A diet high in ultra-processed foods, chronic stress, antibiotic overuse, and poor sleep all systematically dismantle gut diversity. The downstream consequences, now documented in peer-reviewed literature, include chronic low-grade inflammation, obesity, type 2 diabetes, depression, and even neurodegenerative conditions, such as Parkinson's disease and Alzheimer's. Here is the remarkable reversal. A single 24-hour fast or even a 14 to 18-hour overnight window acts as a powerful reset switch for this damaged ecosystem. A 2025 review published in a leading international gastroenterology journal found that fasting selectively increases the relative abundance of several keystone beneficial species, including Akkermansia muciniphila, Lactobacillus, Bifidobacterium, and Faecalibacterium prausnitzii. Of these, Akkermansia muciniphila has emerged over the past decade as perhaps the single most important gut health bacterium identified by modern science. It maintains the thickness of the mucus layer lining your intestinal wall, prevents leaky gut syndrome, and is directly associated with reduced risk of obesity, type 2 diabetes, and autoimmune disease. The fascinating paradox is that Akkermansia actually thrives in the absence of dietary nutrients. When food disappears, this bacterium feeds on the mucin proteins of your own intestinal wall and uses that as fuel to reproduce rapidly. The bacteria you never need to feed is precisely the one your body most urgently needs. Where does the 500% figure come from? A 2022 study, published in Frontiers in Microbiology, documented significant increases in anti-inflammatory Lactobacillus and Bifidobacterium strains in participants following an intermittent fasting protocol. A 2025 meta-analysis found that daily fasting windows of 14 to 18 hours raised Akkermansia muciniphila abundance by 0.6 to 1.2 log 2-fold. Converting that into plain multipliers, a 1.2 log 2-fold increase represents approximately a 2.3-fold rise under a partial fasting protocol. In full 24-hour fasting studies, the effect is markedly amplified. A 10-day prolonged fasting trial found that butyrate-producing bacterial genera surged dramatically in relative proportion as carbohydrate fermenting species declined. Across multiple studies, specific beneficial bacterial clusters have been observed rising 3-fold to 5-fold or 300 to 500% above baseline measurements within a single fasting episode. That is the scientific origin of the headline figure. The mechanism unfolds in 3 sequential stages. First, harmful bacteria starve. Species like Clostridium, pathogenic Escherichia, and Candida depend heavily on a constant supply of simple sugars and refined carbohydrates. Remove that food supply and their numbers plummet within hours. Second, short-chain fatty acids surge. The surviving beneficial bacteria, particularly Faecalibacterium, Prausnitzi and Roseberia species, ferment remaining dietary fibers and intestinal mucin to produce butyrate, propionate, and acetate at elevated rates. These short-chain fatty acids serve as the primary energy source for colonocytes, the cells lining your large intestine, while simultaneously increasing the expression of tight junction proteins, such as claudin 3 and occludin, that reinforce the intestinal barrier. Third, the mucin layer regenerates. As Akkermansia proliferates, the mucus coat protecting your gut wall becomes thicker and denser, blocking bacterial endotoxins and lipopolysaccharides from leaking into systemic circulation. The result is a measurable reduction in serum LPS levels and a dampening of the chronic inflammatory signaling that drives metabolic disease. Butyrate deserves particular attention because its effects extend well beyond the gut. Traveling through the bloodstream, butyrate reaches the liver, where it suppresses gluconeogenesis and improves insulin sensitivity. In the brain, it crosses the blood-brain barrier, inhibits microglial overactivation, reduces neuroinflammation, and promotes the expression of BDNF, the brain-derived neurotrophic factor critical for memory formation and neuronal survival. A large-scale review published in 2025 confirmed that intermittent fasting consistently enriches short-chain fatty acid-producing bacterial strains, and that the butyrate they generate contributes directly to improved insulin resistance, reduced visceral fat, and systemic inflammation control. A single day of fasting, in other words, initiates a cascade originating in the gut that ultimately resets the liver, the brain, and the immune system simultaneously. In terms of practical implementation, there are 3 levels to consider depending on your experience. For beginners, a 12 to 14-hour overnight fast is the starting point. Finish dinner by 7 p.m. on Friday evening and eat your first meal between 7 and 9 a.m. Saturday morning. Even at this level, Akkermansia numbers begin to rise measurably. For intermediate practitioners, a 16 to 18-hour window provides significantly stronger results. Last meal at 6 p.m. Friday, first meal at noon Saturday. At this stage, short-chain fatty acid production accelerates sharply and pathogenic bacterial populations show clear decline. For healthy adults comfortable with a more extended protocol, a full 24-hour fast from Saturday dinner to Sunday dinner, sustained on water and unsweetened herbal teas alone, drives butyrate-producing species to their peak output. Hydration during fasting is non-negotiable. Plain water and unsweetened herbal teas can be consumed freely. Ginger tea in particular supports gentle gut motility and reduces fasting-related gastric discomfort, while the EGCG in green tea has been shown in research to directly support Akkermansia growth. Avoid honey water, fruit juices, and milk, all of which trigger insulin secretion and interrupt the fasting state. Small amounts of black coffee are generally acceptable for most people. The meal that breaks your fast matters as much as the fast itself. Breaking a 16 to 24-hour fast with a high-calorie processed meal will rapidly reverse the microbial gains achieved. The ideal first meal after fasting should combine prebiotic-rich foods: chicory, onion, garlic, asparagus, and slightly underripe bananas, with fermented foods such as kimchi, miso soup, kefir, or plain live culture yogurt. This combination delivers immediate substrate to the newly proliferated beneficial bacteria and accelerates their further expansion. There are important safety boundaries to observe. People with type 1 diabetes, hypoglycemia risk, active kidney disease, a history of eating disorders, or those who are pregnant, breastfeeding, or under 18 years of age should not undertake fasting without explicit medical supervision. Anyone currently taking blood sugar-lowering medications or anticoagulants must discuss medication timing and dose adjustments with their physician before beginning any fasting protocol. If you experience severe dizziness, heart palpitations, or cold sweats during a fast, stop immediately and consume a light meal. Your gut ecosystem is waiting for you to give it the one thing no supplement can provide: silence. 1 day of fasting per week. That is the simplest, most powerful and most scientifically validated method for resetting 38 trillion microbial lives, restoring immune function, and extinguishing the slow fire of chronic inflammation burning inside you. Choose a day this weekend. The response from your body will come far sooner than you expect.